Hey friends, how's it going? Today's story dives into the life of a woman haunted by her terrifying past. Her job? To watch horrifying content every single day. But one day, she comes across a film so disturbing that what she sees seems connected to her own dark history. From that moment, buried secrets begin to unravel. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The story begins in the 1980s in the UK, a time when cinema was rapidly evolving. A new era of films was emerging, filled with bold ideas and graphic imagery. In the midst of it all, we meet our protagonist, Enid, a quiet and lonely woman working for the British Film Censorship Board. Her job is to review films before their release, especially those filled with violent or disturbing scenes. You've probably heard of film censorship, right? Well, this story takes us deep inside that world. One day, Enid and her coworkers sit down to review a low-budget horror film. As film reviewers, it's their responsibility to decide which scenes are acceptable for the public and which ones must be cut out. Back in those days, such extreme movies were often called video nasties. As Enid watches the film, she comes across a particularly brutal scene, a horrifying shot of someone's eye being gouged out. Her reaction is instant. She rejects the scene, calling it too violent for release. But her colleague disagrees, arguing that the film has intellectual depth and shouldn't be censored so harshly. Still, Enid stands her ground. She insists that the scene is far too disturbing for public viewing, and eventually, the scene gets censored. At that time, the British government had become extremely strict about violent films. They blamed them for the rising crime rate across the country, and the news media only added fuel to the fire. Because of that, censors like Enid had to be extra cautious, analyzing every frame to make sure nothing too extreme slipped through. Some films were censored, others were banned completely, especially the ones too violent for their time, and that was usually the case with slasher films. After finishing the film review, the censorship board held a meeting. Some members disagreed with the strict censorship rules, believing that horror and slasher films were being treated too harshly. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. Films do affect the human mind, and so, based on Enid's decision, the movie was officially censored. That night, Enid stayed late at work. The office was empty. Everyone else had already gone home. As she walked through the quiet streets, she noticed a woman with red hair standing in an alley. Enid called out to her, but when the woman turned around, it wasn't who she thought. You see, Enid once had a younger sister named Nina, a girl with the same red hair. When they were children, the two had gone into the woods together. But that day, Nina never came back. She vanished without a trace. No one ever found her body. No one knew if she was alive or dead. From that day on, the memory of Nina's disappearance never left Enid. It haunted her every single day. She never got married, never let anyone close. She lived alone, isolating herself from everyone, even her parents. Deep down, she blamed herself for what happened. After all, she was the one who had taken Nina into the woods that day. Later that evening, Enid returned home to find a voicemail from her mother, an invitation to dinner. She hesitated for a while, but eventually decided to go. That night, over dinner, her parents had something important to tell her. They handed her a document, a death certificate. It was Nina's. After so many years, they had finally accepted that their daughter was gone. At least now, they said, they could find some peace. The date of death? The same day Nina disappeared into the woods. But Enid refused to believe it. How could she accept it when she had never seen her sister's body? To her, Nina was still out there, somewhere. Her mother tried to comfort her, saying softly, "You don't remember everything, my dear." But Enid's mind was already slipping. The guilt, the trauma, the endless replay of that day, it all began to consume her. Depression started to take over, and Enid's grip on reality slowly began to fade. The next day, Enid and her coworker Anne sit down to review another film titled Extreme Coda. As the reel begins, a horrifying scene plays out, a grotesque man assaulting a young girl. The violence is so realistic, it almost feels real. Just then, another coworker, Sanderson, walks in and tells Enid that their boss, Fraser, wants to see them immediately. It's urgent. Inside Fraser's office, he asks if they recently approved a Moreno film called Deranged. They admit they did, a few months ago. Fraser explains that there's a scene in that movie where a man eats someone's face, and yesterday, a man in Brighouse did exactly that. He killed his wife, ate her face, and then shot his 2 children. Fraser goes on to say that a journalist is linking the murders directly to Deranged, blaming their department for approving it. The killer apparently told the police he doesn't remember anything, earning the nickname the Amnesic Killer. As Fraser speaks, Enid drifts into a haunting memory from her childhood, the day her sister disappeared in the woods. The vision unsettles her deeply. Fraser ends the meeting by warning Enid and Sanderson to never approve such films again. The company is already under heavy pressure from the government, and if there's even the slightest doubt about a scene, they must reject the film immediately. Back at home, Enid watches the news and sees reports about the brutal killings. Guilt starts to sink in. She was the one who passed Deranged, and now people are terrified, claiming that violent films like these are inspiring real-life crimes. Just then, the phone rings. When Enid answers, a man yells at her, calling her a disgusting woman for allowing such vile films to be shown, saying she should be ashamed of herself. She hangs up, but the phone rings again, more people calling to blame and insult her. Overwhelmed, Enid's childhood memory flashes before her eyes once again, her parents asking where her sister, Nina, is. The next morning, as Enid arrives at the office, reporters swarm her, throwing questions about Deranged. Why did you approve it? Is what the amnesiac killer said true? She ignores them and hurries inside, where the tension is already sky high. The department is under massive pressure from both the public and the government. A while later, Doug Smart, a producer from Ident Investment Films, visits the office. Fraser introduces Enid as one of their top censors. When Doug shakes her hand, it's clear he's intrigued by her. He even jokingly offers her a role in one of his films instead of censoring them. Enid coldly replies that she's not interested in being, quote, raped and chopped into pieces on camera. Doug smirks and says, the audience would love it. Then, turning to Fraser, he requests that Enid personally review his latest Frederick North submission from the archives, confident she'll handle it with her usual professionalism. Later, Enid and her coworker Perkins sit down to review another film titled Don't Go in the Church, directed by Frederick North. As the film begins, 2 sisters are seen walking through the woods. The younger girl, Alice Lee, tells her sister she wants to go back, but the older one insists it'll be fun. She suggests a game, asking Alice to spin around 3 times and go inside a nearby eerie-looking cabin. As Alice hesitantly steps inside, Enid starts feeling uneasy. The young actress looks eerily similar to her missing sister, Nina. Moments later, the older sister picks up an axe, follows Alice inside, and brutally hacks her to death, showing no mercy. The scene freezes Enid in shock. It feels too real. She rushes to the restroom and vomits. When she comes out, Perkins approaches, offering to help, saying she can always talk to him if something's bothering her. Trying to shake it off, Enid asks what he thinks about the amnesiac killer, the man who claimed to have forgotten his brutal crimes. Perkins explains it could be psychological trauma. Maybe his mind erased the memory because it couldn't handle the truth. He then invites her out for a drink, but Enid politely refuses and leaves. That night, Enid calls her mother, trying to talk about the disturbing film she saw, but her mother simply tells her not to let movies get inside her head. That night, Enid has a terrifying nightmare. She finds herself waking up in the middle of the night, disoriented. As she walks downstairs, she sees a familiar film playing on the TV, Don't Go in the Church, by Frederick North. But this time, something's different. She sees her younger self inside the movie, calling out to her sister, Nina, who's walking into a dark cabin. Enid then spots a sheet of paper with strands of hair taped to it. Written across it are the words, Don't Go in the Church, directed by Frederick North. Suddenly, she hears her mother crying in another room. When she turns, her mother is there, screaming, blaming her. The next day at work, a disturbing thought starts to take over her mind. What if the actress in that film really was Nina? What if those brutal scenes weren't staged at all? Could Frederick North have kidnapped her sister? It sounds insane, but Enid can't shake the feeling. She believes it. Completely. Determined to find answers, Enid approaches the department's office assistant, Valerie, and asks for information on Frederick North. But Valerie tells her that without a list of his films, accessing the censorship archives could take weeks. Enid doesn't have that kind of time, so she decides to take matters into her own hands. She visits a shady video store known for renting banned films. The owner panics when she catches him with illegal tapes, and to save himself, he hands over one of North's movies. Later that night, Enid watches the film, and there she is again, Alice Lee. The same eyes, the same face. Enid's heart stops. She's certain now, that girl isn't just some actress, that's Nina. The next morning, Enid rushes to her parents' house, desperate to tell them what she's discovered. She shows them Alice's picture from the DVD cover, insisting it's her lost sister. But her parents refuse to believe her. Her father says the girl doesn't even look like Nina and that they've made peace with the past. But Enid can't. Something deep inside tells her Nina is still out there. The argument with her parents escalated until, finally, they told her to leave. No one believed her. Frustrated and desperate, Enid decided to take matters into her own hands. She snuck into the archives and found the records for the film Don't Go in the Church. There, she discovered Doug Smart's address, the producer of the film. Without hesitation, she went straight to his house. She needed the truth about Alice Lee. When Enid rang the doorbell, Doug answered, holding a nail puller. He explained that many people disliked his films, so he kept it nearby for safety. Then, surprisingly, he invited her inside. Once inside, it quickly became clear that Doug had other intentions. He wasn't interested in her questions. He wanted her. Assuming she was just another obsessive fan, he tried to take advantage of her. But Enid wasn't there for that. She refused to give in. Her voice trembled with anger as she shouted, "You kidnapped my sister!" Doug laughed, lunging at her, trying to overpower her. A violent struggle erupted. In the chaos, Doug slipped, his head striking his own heavy film award. The sharp edge pierced his skull, and he collapsed instantly. Doug was dead, but Enid didn't panic. She didn't scream. She calmly walked to the bathroom, washed the blood from her hands, took a shower, and left the house, quietly as if nothing had happened. The next day, back at the office, Enid continued digging deeper. She sneaked into the archives again, determined to find out where Frederick North's latest film was being shot. There, she came across one of North's reports, but Valerie intercepted her, warning that she wasn't authorized to access that information. Enid shrugged it off and left the office. Outside, reporters swarmed her, firing questions about the incidents. She ignored them and walked away, focused on her own mission. That night, her search led her to a secluded filming location, a dark, eerie forest, bathed in spotlights and thick fog. A trailer sat in the center, its windows glowing faintly. As she approached, a makeup artist named Debbie stepped out, scolding her for being late. When Enid asked if this was the set for Alice Lee's film, Debbie mistook her for one of the cast members and invited her inside. Enid played along. Debbie dressed her in a white gown and guided her to a chair, carefully painting her face, unknowingly preparing her for the most dangerous scene of her life. As she worked, Debbie chatted casually, mentioning that Doug hadn't arrived yet, that he never missed a gory murder scene, completely unaware that he was already dead. Then, she led Enid into the woods and poured blood over her white dress. She urged Enid to walk deeper into the forest. Enid moved toward a cluster of lights set up for filming. There, she finally came face to face with Frederick North, the director she believed had stolen her sister. North calmly said he had been waiting for her. To him, she was just another actress, a desperate girl trying to impress him. Enid demanded to know where Alice was. North asked if she was a big fan. Enid pressed him about the film Don't Go in the Church, asking where the idea had come from. North admitted it was inspired by true events. He said all his stories were drawn from real life. People thought he created horror, but according to him, the real horrors were already out there, in the world, in all of us, even inside Enid. Enid insisted that what he claimed wasn't true. North told her that if she wanted to play this role, she needed to access her darkest impulses. Enid protested, saying she had none. North screamed at her to commit, to take control of her own story. When she refused again, he dismissed her, telling her to leave. But Enid begged, desperate to see her sister. She wanted Alice back. North paused, then agreed. On one condition, she had to stop controlling herself and instead let out whatever she was hiding deep inside. Then, the scene began. In Enid's hands was a bloodied axe. Her heart pounded as she stepped into the cabin, and there, standing before her, was a deformed, monstrous man, holding Alice captive. He hugged Enid tightly, whispering that he had loved her all along, that he had been waiting for her for so long. It turned out he had kept Alice captive only for Enid. He knew her darkness, and he urged her to let it loose, to kill Alice. But Enid couldn't. She hadn't come to kill her sister, she had come to save her. Except, this was supposed to be just a film, a fake scene. Yet to Enid, it felt horrifyingly real. In a rush of panic and determination, she swung the axe, and the man crumpled lifelessly. She swung again and again, until his body was unrecognizable. The entire set fell silent, eyes widened in shock. "Cut! Cut!" the director shouted, rushing forward. But Enid froze, stunned. Alice screamed, demanding to know what she had done. Terrified, she ran outside, unable to process the horror of the moment. But something inside Enid had changed. She blamed North for everything. With a cold, empty stare, she lifted the axe once more and struck. Frederick North was gone. Meanwhile, Alice ran through the trees, vanishing into the darkness. Enid chased after her, calling out for her sister. But Alice's voice trembled as she insisted she wasn't Nina, begging to be left alone. Enid pleaded, telling her she was her sister, and that she had killed that man to protect her. But Alice refused to believe it, saying he had been her friend and calling Enid insane. Enid kept insisting she would never hurt her, that she was Nina, her sister. But Alice shook her head, claiming it wasn't real and that she wasn't her sister. Enid refused to accept it, insisting she had to be. Yet Alice held firm and walked away. Overwhelmed by grief, Enid collapsed to the ground, tears streaming down her face, whispering over and over that she had to be Nina. She begged her to be Nina. Then, the scene shifted. Reality seemed to melt away. They were no longer on the set. They had stepped inside Enid's mind. In her imagination, Alice had transformed. She was no longer Alice Lee. She was Nina, her lost sister. "You came back to save me," Nina said, and Enid realized she had. Nina took Enid's hand, and together they walked home. The world around them shimmered with warmth and color, safe, vibrant, alive. As they drove down the road, the radio buzzed in the background, saying that all the video nasties had been wiped out, the guilty ones punished, and that Britain was finally safe. No more crimes, no more kidnappings, no more deaths. Nothing to be afraid of anymore. Enid took Nina home to their parents. For a moment, their faces lit up with joy. It looked like a perfect reunion, a happy ending. For a brief second, it felt like everything was finally okay. And then, the film ends. But here's the truth. Enid wasn't a savior. She was the monster she'd been trying to hide from all along. The movie Don't Go in the Church wasn't just fiction. It was a reflection of her past, the day she killed her own sister, Nina, inside that cabin in the woods. Whether it was rage, jealousy, or a tragic accident, Enid buried that memory deep within her mind. She grew up believing her sister was missing, when in reality, she was the reason Nina was gone. That guilt consumed her, shaping her entire life. She became a film censor, someone who cuts violence from movies, but what she was really doing was censoring herself, erasing the horror she'd once created. And by the end, her fragile mind completely collapsed. The happy ending we see, where she rescues Nina and brings her home, was nothing more than a delusion. In reality, Enid hadn't brought Nina home at all. She had dragged Alice, terrified and screaming, in front of her horrified parents. Unable to face what she'd done, Enid built a world of her own, a world where Nina was still alive, where she was the hero, and where everything was finally okay. But it wasn't. Because the truth is, Enid didn't save anyone. She killed again, and censored the truth one last time. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more chilling recaps. See you later.